Is this self-published?
No, that's Jahazi
Jahazi
Press.
Press. Okay, what the decision to compile it? How did that?
So what happened is that Peter Kimani, Jahazi Press had just been set up, and the 4 authors within Jahazi Press were Peter Kimani, Yvonne Adiambo War with the Dragonfly Sea, Mukomo Ngugi, Berry the one about sort of Ethiopian music. But those were the 3.
Oh, Mukoma's.
Mukoma. So those were the 3 writers in the stable.
Yeah.
But because of his influence, Peter Kimani managed to persuade the big fish at Jahazi to take a risk with a collection of plays. And on his recommendation, the risk was taken. Because what I'd been told before that by the traditional publishers is that I'd have to publish one, role play had been published. I'd have to wait for that to sell out. Then we do Minister Karibu, wait for it to sell out. And I said, look, folks, I really failed my maths, but by the time these things will be done, I'll be dead anyway.
And I want to see.
I want to see the collection.
True.
So again, we started editing feverishly. My family was part of the editing process. And then again, there was a spring of support, because who did I get to write the introduction?
Ngugi wa Thiong'o.
Ngugi wa Thiong'o. But why did Ngugi wa Thiong'o write the introduction? It's because he was my teacher. Because if I was at the university in 1973, we were that sort of great age when Ngugi wa Thiong'o was there, head of the literature department. Okot Bitek used to regale us with his stories. Another great storyteller, very funny. Taban Loliong, Michelle Mugo used to come and give us lectures, looking absolutely stunning. We just went to the lectures just to see her, to be in her presence.
Whatever works.
Forget, people were sort of streaming in from BCom, B Science, just to see this highly intelligent and extremely beautiful woman. So who is doing the forward is maybe Ngugi. The introduction is by Margareta Agashero, our leading
theatre critic.
But Margareta Agashero came here on a scholarship from the US to study literature, and she was in the same year group as my year. So you see how far we go back with Margareta. When she met her husband and everything, she was Margareta, forget her maiden name. We were all there. So Margareta's coming out, oh, Jan, I'd really like to, whatever her accent is, write you an introduction. Who is doing the afterward, commenting on having seen all the plays. Yashpal Gai, father of our constitution. And who is agreeing to do the cover.
Gado the Great.
Yes. So, I mean, and then at the back you've got Giorgio Rido and whatever it is.
Your social capital is amazing, because all these I see social capital right here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's worth gaining the social capital.
It definitely is. You also a screen actor. You've been in several movies.
Yes, well, the screen acting, stage acting, I said earlier on, from school, having done whatever I'd done, and then I'd done a TV series as the son of a Maasai elder. But by the time we hit the big time now, Hollywood was coming to town. So shall I tell you another story? This story, there's the great Lenny Juma. And the great Lenny Juma, there've been auditions. We used to be like cattle markets, 3,000 people wanting to be in this Hollywood movie. So Lenny Juma again phoned me and said, just on this, come and audition. I said, how many capitalist pigs, what the Paris statues. But as a result of that audition, I got a credited part in The Constant Gardener.
Constant Gardener.
So Ray Fiennes, Rachel Weisz won Best Supporting Actress. So that was nice. But before that, Cronies, let's also be homegrown. Albert Wandago cast me in Metamo as a kind of priesty guy. Judy Kivinge cast me as some kind of weirdo psychiatrist guy. And Spottiswoode, the British Canadian who done a James Bond movie, and he did Shake Hands with the Devil, which was the story of Romeo Dallaire, the general, during the genocide in Rwanda. And in that particular one, I was Jacques Roger Boubou. Again, now language skills, because all my dialogue was in French, because Boubou spoke French. So I spoke in French, and they were subtitled. Now, again, what had impressed Spottiswoode is that when I spoke French, he said, "But that's a really good accent." Now, what it did for them, the Hollywood people, is to spare them the expense of getting a named actor to do Bobo, because they sort of paid me what they'd pay, extras, I guess. But, my name comes in the credits about 4 in. And then the other movie with Oliver Litondo, when he did the movie about the old man who went to primary school, according to a decree that everybody was entitled to an education. And that was called The First Grader. So, again, lucky to have had the enablers, the angels, people like Lenny Juma, who said, "You've really got to see this guy."
Okay.
So, yes. So that's Hollywood.
When I watch your plays, I enjoy watching plays more than I enjoy reading. But usually I'll watch.
Well, you've got to watch plays. You should watch plays.
But I do watch. I'm your biggest customer. But when I watch them, I'm always asking myself one thing: would you have survived in Moi or Kenyatta times? Because I think
we give thanks and praise. Our society is evolving. I mean, if I had written those plays in the era of Ngugi wa Thiong'o, I'd have joined them in exile, because they're probing of the system. To say they're critical, because normally the artist is daring people to look at themselves like in the nude.
Absolutely.
And sometimes when you look at your body in the nude, it's not perfect.
You've made me cry a few times.
Yes. But there's another story that attaches to that about the playwriting, because I wish you'd asked me, but now I'm going to ask you, why do you write the plays that you do?
I was going to ask you, you just preempted me.
Okay, well, let me tell you that story. I was traveling, as in my travels, normally I get to moderate, you said international moderator. I get to moderate outside this country, and I've gone as far as the United States and everything. So in one of the trips to the United States, one of the things that I could see was a play called Fences. And if you're young, you'd have seen that one of the Academy Awards, Denzel Washington, was in a play called Fences. And then the Bursman, the actor who died of cancer, his very last movie, there was a lot of publicity around Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. Do those titles mean anything to you? Fences and Ma Rainey's Black Bottom.
Fences does though.
Yeah, but the youngsters will get it. Those two plays, those two film adaptations are plays known by a man called August Wilson. August Wilson was an African-American playwright who decided to do the African-American cycle. And he did a play to represent the Black experience in the US for every decade of the 20th century. So 1900 to 1910, Mchezo Hapo. That was Gem of the Ocean. Then, and so forth. So by the time you got to Fences, which was about basketball and a father-son conflict, he was in the 1950s. And when you got to Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, he was a decade, whatever, in Chicago. So when I manage, because whenever I travel abroad, I make it a point of watching plays wherever I go. So I just, my hosts, my guests, can I go and see a play? And I've watched plays in Sweden, a language I couldn't understand, but just to see the stagecraft. And when I saw Fences, must have been sort of mid-80s, it had the great James L. Jones. So it's not, this is CNN. So this was CNN guy on stage. Absolutely mind-blowing, the presence. And then I asked, who's this August Wilson fellow? And I said, if this guy's writing about the history of his people over a period of time, why can't I, as inspiration, write about the story of my nation in plays? So we've only been independent for 60 odd years, so we can't go back a century. So now Marjorie and people are asking me to write a play, Barack Muluka is asking me to write a play, everybody's asking me to write a play, and I decided I'm going to write about Kenya. So the first one took in the political assassinations, JM, that was role play. Then Minister Karibu, I tried to write a comedy about the big man syndrome and corruption. Then Meetings, which you saw recently. I was writing
for the second time.
Yeah, the aftermath of the 1982 coup.
Yeah.
Then we had Kagia, the Kapenguria 6.
That one made me really cry.
The confrontation between Bildad Kagia and Jomo Kenyatta, Ubepari versus social democracy. We went the capitalist, every man for himself and God for his self well, but there's a conflict there. I met an actress who was here, who was French, Nathalie Verac, and somebody said we could collaborate. So I wrote a play, a monologue for her in French, the only play I've written in a language other than English. And Nathalie, we were deciding to have the origins because her father was meant to have been a Muhindi who had fathered her with a Luo girl when the railway got to Kisumu. So we're looking at the idea of, so she's half Muhindi, half black, then she becomes an author. And what's your identity? When you've got that kind of baggage in your blood, who are you? And you've traveled the world. And then when we had our constitution, we just had the meetings I wrote to sort of warn people not to go back to the events of 2007. So I wrote it just before the 2013 elections and told Kenyans, if you go into this maandamano spirit, as you seem to be doing now, if you go for confrontation, it end up badly. So just give it a miss, have chats, have dialogue, but if you want to kill each other, you also destroy the nation. So that was the merit. Then we had a constitution and we did dinner at Her Excellency's to unpack the new 2010 constitution. So it's a radio play. I have a sort of Mzungu ambassador who invites all these sort of elite of the nation to discuss the constitution. And they're coming at it from different, again, sort of based on a dinner that I'd been with various sort of activists.
You draw your inspiration from other plays or?
No, just history, research.
From history.
Because I'm not just going to write any play. I'm going to mine that field. So the next one, which I'm working on now,
I was going to ask you when is the next one.
I want to go to the 50s. I want to go back to Mau Mau. I want to go back to that home guard versus freedom fighter and link it up with people sort of going off to the Kenyatta's farm and everybody leaves with a dope at the end of the day. And you're saying, you guys were home guard, we fought for freedom. So even amongst Kikuyus, it's like a big deal. But who were these guys? Were they really Dedan Kimathi and all these, what's the... So I've been doing a lot of research, and luckily for the Mau Mau period, a lot of the people who actually took part are still alive.
How soon are we expecting that?
Oh, that baby is going to be born. Remember, I'm trying to link up my things. Once you've written it, you've got to get it produced. Remember I said write it? It should be written. Now, if you're going to produce it and pay for the National to put it on for 120,000 bob a night, then you might see it soon. But it'll exist by the end of this year.
I could interview you the whole day. There's so much. I think I'm going to call you back to this program at some point because I can't exhaust you in one program. But before I let you go, I would love you to do two things for us. Use your voice, the voice, to read for us a passage. Pick any from one of the plays.
You'd warned me, so I've picked one.
Oh, you've
That's the trouble with warnings.
Okay, let's do this. Remember, it was what, page 1?
I want to, first of all, the voice is not really called for here because I'm going to do a woman character. A woman character, so I'm sure one boy.
This should be interesting.
But the words are interesting. This is from Kagea.
Okay.
And when we, if and when we have the next conversation, or maybe I want to, because remember my preoccupation with the young, I would like to sort of talk more about how a playwright goes towards writing a play. Because I'm sure you've interviewed novelists. It's a completely different skill. That's why I'm saying I'm not going to do, I'm not doing grain of wheat. And there's something to be said about the process. And you have a message. And Wamboi Kagia,
Kagia's daughter.
No, the wife.
Oh, Wambui was the wife, okay.
Yeah, so let me set up a context and you can cut this bit out if it doesn't fit in, but it's fairly long. Look at what's happening, what Lim was saying. So we're saying to the young that we've created two characters, historical characters, and across the set we've got two young people who are trying to make a film about Kagia. And they come across the stage to interact with the two protagonists. And we start off with them speaking in Gikuyu, so that we take in that although the dialogue is very refined and subtle, it's in the mother tongue. The Kikuyu language is capable of carrying this subtlety.
True.
And God willing, maybe one day Kagia will be translated into Kikuyu in its entirety, and we'll take it to Muranga, where he came from, and the people.
Okay.
So this is Wamboi Kagia. We could do two bits.
Okay.
This is Wamboi Kagia in one scene, describing what it is to grow up. And then the understanding is that she dies. And then in the scene afterwards, directly afterwards, the husband comes back to mourn her.
Okay.
So here we go. It's very long, so to be deleted for the next episode.
Okay.
So Wamboi Kagia is being interviewed by a journalist in Gikuyu, because she doesn't understand English. And she says, yes, our history books have to be rewritten. But there is one important thing. It is not enough to remember our freedom fighters and heroes. We must also remember the traitors who betrayed our cause and our people. Your last personal question, as you call it, is quite a challenging one, but I shall try to answer it truthfully. When I was growing up, we were taught to work hard and to serve others. There was water and firewood to be fetched. There was land to be cultivated. There was livestock to be herded. There were homes to be built. And it was women and young girls who did a lot of this work. Of course, there were women who were considered beautiful. I like to think that I was one of them. But it was not beauty that singled you out as a desirable bride. It was how long the furrows you dug. It was how much water you fetched in a day. It had nothing to do with your figure, but everything to do with how powerful a human machine you were, a machine made to serve men. Women knew no such thing as a wardrobe, and no such thing as a woman's personal shoe collection. You wore clothes to cover your body, and most probably you walked barefoot. If you were lucky, your husband gave you enough money to buy material for a new dress for special occasions, like going to church and weddings and funerals. Women were the property of their husbands. I saw men beating women with sticks as if they were animals, for no good reason and as a matter of course. But from this servitude, you also won respect in the community, as the wife of so-and-so, and then as the mother of so-and-so. If you were lucky, you got married to a man who respected you and treated you well. If you were unlucky, you got married to a monster. I suppose that much hasn't changed. A woman was meant to accept the life that was offered to her and ask for nothing. A woman had no personal ambition except to be a wife and a mother. So much for being a woman. As for sex, now there's a taboo subject. You gave sex on demand, without demands, as long as at some point it resulted in childbirth and motherhood. I myself never questioned this scheme of things. It just wasn't the done thing. It's a bit like religion. Beliefs and conduct are ingrained into you. You don't dare to question them, as it is sinful to do so. one thing a person should never do is to reveal intimate family details to strangers. Have I been happy? Have I been fulfilled? I do not know, really. As I was trying to explain, the pursuit of happiness was never part of the equation. The equation states that one is because of what one does, not because of what one expects. And there is fulfillment in living like that. As for Kagia, I made a point of getting to know and understand the man that fate had assigned to me. I didn't marry him for his looks, but he, observant fellow, married me for mine. And let us not forget that I was a very good dancer. My father couldn't stand him, but that to me was a recommendation. But in all seriousness, I was drawn to the fact that he seemed fearless and adventurous, that he was inquisitive of mind. I could see that he could be stubborn. I had a feeling that he could be trustworthy and dedicated and faithful. After all, he had not forgotten his pledge to marry me in all those years that he was abroad. And I tried as much as possible to accept him as he was, because I knew that we had to make the best of it till death do us part, and that our marriage was never meant to be perfect. Luckily for me, I married a good, decent man. It was hard for me and the 2 children all the years he was away in detention. And it was hard for me and the children, more of them, as it turned out, all the years that he was engrossed in politics. But I saw my role as a supporter and protector as much as I could support and protect, because I respected him and what he stood for. My own needs were always an afterthought. That's all I would say on the matter. Thank you. Wambui exits, and after she has done so, the spotlight is switched off slowly, much like the dying embers of a fire. Scene 11. Kagia eulogizes Wambui. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, thank you for coming to be with me at this burial ceremony. I stand before you a man diminished. Half of me is gone, half my sight, half my hearing. Henceforth, I am to lie in my bed alone. People are always keen to ask, how did you meet your wife? How did you meet your husband? We met in a small village here in Moranga. In those days, her full name was Deborah Wambui Nelson Getau, but she was known as Miss Nelson. I was smitten by her, but I was too scared to declare my intentions verbally, so I put them in writing some time after I'd arrived at my posting in the army. She replied in the affirmative, which for the youngsters among you means that she said yes to my proposal of marriage. To tell you the absolute truth, I had first thought of marrying someone else, but she was too slow in responding. I do recall that Miss Nelson carried my metal suitcase to the railway station when I left for Egypt as a soldier. She had to wait for me for 4 years, yet her faithfulness to me was never in doubt. It would have been sinful of me to betray her trust and steadfastness. She suffered blows because of me at her father's hands before I joined the army and went away. She suffered blows because of me at her father's hands in my absence. And once we were married, she suffered blows because of me when my political foes sent their lackeys to try to kill me. She was persecuted and even imprisoned for being associated with me, yet she never wavered in her resolve. Wambui was a resolute woman. She took care of our first 2 children alone during the 7 years in restriction. She ignored the many taunts that swirled around her ears. She was a thick-skinned shield to my combative soul. I would not have done what I have done had she been faint of heart. She shared my vision of the world. I know I wouldn't have done what I have done had she spurned the life that I offered her and our children, had she assailed me constantly with comparisons to other men who had seemingly done better than me. Her affection and support were a constant solace. However, such is human decay that she spent her final days, weak and bedridden, a shadow of her former self. She needs to rest now. She must rest now. She has gone on ahead of me, but I am sure that when my time comes, Miss Nelson will help to carry my baggage as part of the reception committee to the eternal life beyond. I yearn to follow her. That is all I have to say. I thank you once again.
Thank you so much. That is telling of what the story is about.
It's also a quaint love story, because the thing is that the understanding is that our parents, our forefathers, there's a Hollywood type of love, and I was trying to suggest that, you know, looking at my own parents and the parents of people that I've known. I mean, I wanted to write some lyrical stuff that would touch
love
for women of a certain generation.
Because it was thought that people did not really, you know, it was like a business deal. You come live with me, have children.
But there
were feelings involved.
There were feelings involved.
Your life has been charmed, I think, your career.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, it's been charmed. So this is gonna, but I'm sure you've got things to say. I would usually ask, what advice would you give to upcoming authors and actors who want to be like you, but then that feels, but still, from your experience, you've observed, you've seen what is going on. What would you tell our young people who aspire, who look at you as a, you know, as a figure of...
the question is sufficient, because I've got an answer.
Okay.
I think the answer is just do it. The Nike slogan.
Put in the work.
Just do it, and let the rest follow.
Yeah.
And make a conscious effort to be good at what you do. And I think that means having respect for what came before. That means having respect for what came before.
Okay.
If you want to be a novelist, please don't say you haven't read Things Fall Apart. Please don't say you haven't read Arrow of God. If you want to be a novelist, please don't say you haven't read A Grain of Wheat, The River Between. And since you want to be a writer in English, please have the humility to read Dickens. And if you want to be a playwright, please have the humility to read Shakespeare, because it's all been done before.
Yeah.
Your arrogance is not called for. What is called for is to put the enormity of human existence into your own context. There'll always be love stories. Maybe I'll set a love story in Bunyala Budalangi. Maybe somebody else will set it up in Moranga. Maybe somebody else will set it amongst the El Molo next to Lake Turkana. But don't be dismissive of what has come before. Because if you dismiss what has come before, you will never, even if you aspire to be, write anything which deserves to enter any canon. If you look at Picasso, he started off drawing real portraits and everything else. Then by the time he'd finished with himself, he was doing what he was doing. If you look at Shoenka, if you get really keen, do the legwork. Read every single day. Read. And reading doesn't mean reading the newspapers, because our newspapers, for the most part, are badly written. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
That's not the bar to set.
Yeah.
There are other bars. Read the language and the language of the people who speak it. I'd love to, in my old age, really master Gikuyu. I'd love to.
I can teach you.
I'd love to master the Luo. I've got nothing tribal. I don't have a tribal animosity to these things. It's the lack of time. But I wish I could. And dare I say that I could learn it. I don't have the time now that I have to actually create within that language. Master your tools first, create in them next.
Be good at what you do.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for talking to a playwright.
I know.
This must continue.
This must continue. I need to invite others. Unfortunately for me, we have to come to the end of this program, but see you soon next time. Bye-bye.